Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This video is all about Halloween. Let's get into it. So this video is just me discussing the future of the franchise and some ideas for where it could possibly go. And this is also off the cuff and unscripted, so I apologize in advance if I start to go on a tangent or down a rabbit hole. I'll try to reel it back in and stay on track if that happens. So guys, I had Halloween fatigue. If you would have asked me 4 years ago if that was even possible or if I thought that was even possible, I would have said, hell no, there's no way. It is not possible. But the past 4 years, and definitely the past 3, it's been a roller coaster ride. A roller coaster that never lets up. And it's not just the movies themselves, it's the toxicity in the fandom, really. The whole community is just, it's the division in the community, I guess. And the division amongst fans. Because gone are the days of just celebrating movies. And I get it. People really sometimes just don't like certain movies, and that's okay. In fact, that's more than okay. That's awesome. That's how we create conversations. And that's what these communities are all about. So people should be allowed to feel any way they want to feel because not every movie is going to work for every person. But as a 90s kid, I remember growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, and obviously it was like this prior to those years, where if a movie didn't look interesting, you just didn't go watch it in theater. You didn't spend your money on it. If you watched it and you didn't like it, you wouldn't buy or rent it. And that was the end of it. The only critics we had were professional critics using mainstream platforms to do their job. And then, of course, we had good old-fashioned pen and paper, and you could write the studios, and there were people that did that. But the vast majority of people did not. They just watched the movie, and it either worked for them or it didn't. Case closed. I'll be honest, I have always adored that aspect of the pre-social media world. That's why I was so late to the party in terms of the online social media, YouTube, film communities. From the outside looking in, it just looked like a bunch of people criticizing each other for having different taste. And it seems like it should be a place where fans could come together to celebrate their favorite movies and franchises together as a community. But that's not really what it's turned into. It's people arguing because everybody thinks they have the right answer. If you like a certain movie, then you're not a real fan, or you have no taste, or if you dislike a movie, you're just being a snob and everybody just treats it like it's such an objective form of art. Well, I'm here to tell you that it is not. Of course, there are objective qualities and aspects of film, but enjoyment of film is entirely subjective. There's plenty of movies that have been technically well-made, well-scripted, and well-acted films, but I just simply didn't like them. And that's okay. Trying to force someone to like what you like or dislike what you like is just silly, and that, to me, seems like the true characteristic of a film snob. Well, all of this toxicity has gotten really bad in the Halloween community, especially in the past few years, and all of it honestly just pushed me right out the door. I got serious Halloween fatigue and burnout. Halloween 1978 will always be my favorite horror film and one of my favorite films, period. But I needed to take a break from it, especially now that this recent trilogy finally wrapped up. I felt like my anticipation of those movies and the constant digestion of news and conversations of that franchise was keeping me from enjoying other quality films as much as I could have been. But now, like I said, that trilogy has wrapped up and the dust has settled, so I started thinking about what I personally would like to see from the franchise moving forward if and when it continues, and I honestly believe it will. It's Halloween. It's way too profitable for the studios to just put it on a shelf somewhere and never pick it up again, which is honestly kind of a bummer if you look at it. I mean, yeah, I'm a fanboy. I can admit that. If there's a new Halloween movie coming out, whether it's next year, next week, 10 years from now, whatever, I'm there for it. But the problem is these studios don't understand that stories and characters do have shelf lives, and you depreciate the integrity of those characters when you just keep pumping them out like they're on a production line. But that's the studio machine, and at the end of the day, it is about money, so what do? You just sit back, watch the movies, and hopefully you enjoy them. So let me begin with saying that I don't want anything from this franchise anytime soon. I have videos covering my thoughts of each movie in the David Gordon Green trilogy, as well as a franchise ranking. So I'm not going to go into all of it here, but if you did see those, then you know that I did like that trilogy. In fact, 2 of the movies ranked pretty high for me. But like I said, I'm just burnt out with all of it. So I just don't want to see anything anytime soon. They need to take a few years and really concoct something great. But also, I really think they should get away from Michael Myers altogether, at least for a while. I want to see them go back to the anthology route, and they don't have to be completely disconnected from the Michael Myers universe. They can take place in the same universe. You can even throw little Easter eggs in there. Although I don't want a bunch of really on-the-nose Easter eggs, because then it just feels like a bunch of forced fan service, and that can be pretty tacky if it's not handled right. So I'd rather them just stay away from that altogether. But if you want to throw in some little deep cut Easter eggs in there for like the hardcore fans, I think that would be cool. Just a couple of things sprinkled in there to let the fans know that, hey, this does take place in that same universe. Michael Myers exists here. Maybe it can be a newspaper article laying on the table that mentions Haddonfield, or a reporter on the news talking about something that happened in the last trilogy. I don't know. I really don't know what direction you'd want to go with that. But the sky's the limit on creativity. I just don't want to see them make Michael Myers the focal point again. And they need to make sure in their marketing that they make it damn clear it is not a Michael Myers movie. You don't want Season of the Witch 2.0 in terms of Season of the Witch. I want to know what the aftermath of Cochrane's plan was. I mean, they didn't show us. Obviously, the movie just kind of left you on a very grim note, but you know there were some serious repercussions, and the world was not the same after that, at least not for a while. Maybe you could say that Cochrane just drugged Chalice and he was only hallucinating and imagining that Ellie was a robot. You can say that everything else happened, obviously, but I personally think that would be a pretty decent retcon, because then you could say that they had a kid together, and that can be who this new story centers around. And honestly, I just came up with that off the top of my head. I mean, it's probably a horrible idea, but my point here is there's a lot of different directions you could take that story, and I think there's a lot of untapped potential there. And this is probably the idea that I want to see the most. Like if they were to do anything, or if somebody was to come to me in that studio and say, Shane, it's your choice, man. What would you like to see? This is what I would like to see, a Season of the Witch sequel. But I'm a nobody, so that's obviously never going to happen. But that is what I would like to see the most. But then there's the sequel to Halloween 4 idea that I keep seeing everybody throw around. All the Jamie fans want to see Jamie Lloyd come back. And I mean, I would love to see them continue her story, but of course you would have to ignore 5 and 6. Mainly because Jamie died in 6, so it's not like you could pick up from that one anyways, not if you're wanting to continue her story. But even aside from the obvious reason, there's another problem. And as much of an affinity as I do have for 5 and 6, because I grew up with them and I've got a lot of nostalgia for them, they really aren't good movies. I mean, they're not. And they are basically the movies that killed the franchise, especially 5. I mean, 6 was only bad because it was trying to clean up the mess that was made with part 5. But 6 is still bad. I mean, it's better. 6 is a better movie, and it's definitely a more enjoyable movie, but still not a good movie. Then you have the problem, and I only see this being a problem with a major studio, but obviously a studio is going to be looking at money potential, and the reality is that even though Jamie Lloyd is a fan favorite within the Halloween community, the majority of moviegoers have no idea who she is, and they would probably just be checked out. But to be fair, I think Halloween 3 would have the same problem. It does have a cult following now, but same thing applies. The majority of moviegoers either have no idea what that movie is, or didn't like it, or have no interest in it whatsoever. So that moves me into option 3, and that's just wiping the slate completely clean and doing another remake or reboot. Just retell the original story all over again, but don't just plagiarize the movie and do a beat for beat remake. Don't make it the exact same movie. They need to make it their own. They need to keep the essence of Halloween in that movie. But as far as I'm concerned, you don't even have to call the villain Michael Myers. I mean, you could separate it from the old franchise in that way. I don't think you have to have Michael Myers in the movie for it to be a Halloween movie. It just needs to have the DNA of what makes a Halloween movie. A very good example of this is the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot with Jessica Biel. It was clearly a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. It had all the DNA of a Texas Chainsaw movie, but they made it their own. They went their own direction while still paying respect and keeping the essence of what made that original movie. And it is widely considered by most fans of that franchise to either be the second best in that series or to some, like myself, be the best in that series. But I digress. All I'm saying here is that's another direction they could go if they wanted to. And I think it would still have high potential for being very profitable, as well as being a critical success if they just learn from their past mistakes and stick the landing. But that's all I've got. If you guys have any more ideas, I'd love to hear them. You can leave them down in the comments section or find me on one of my socials, which are in the video description. Also, hit the notification bell icon so you never miss a video. In the meantime, like and share this video if you haven't already. Please subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.